You're listening to Exposed by the So Cultured Podcast.
We're your hosts, Liv,
Yaz,
and Taz.
Three girls with a passion for science and tech.
Yep, and welcome to our thrilling new series.
This series, we are taking you on a journey to uncover the truth behind your fave TV shows and movies.
From the intergalactic adventures of Star Wars to the monstrous depths of the Meg.
And the chilling scenarios of zombie apocalypses.
Join us as we question whether these plots could ever happen in real life.
And reveal the scientific inaccuracies hidden on our screens.
And don't worry, we will still be dishing out the laboraTEA this season with some even crazier listener stories than ever before.
So grab your popcorn for a side of piping hot laboraTEA.
Before we get into it, remember that all opinions are our own and all our listener stories are alleged.
And now let's get into this week's episode of Exposed.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the penultimate episode of the So Cultured Exposed series. I honestly can't believe that we are so close to finishing. And if you guys have enjoyed it, I hope you guys have. But if we were to do this series again, what kind of films would you guys like us to cover?
Yeah.
Because now that I've started looking at the science and exposing these films or TV series, every film I'm watching, I have like a critical eye with it.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I could uncover or expose so many other films.
So
But
true.
we want to know, what would you like us to cover in the future?
That is so true. And I've been speaking to my family and my friends about this series, and everyone is like, please, can you do this film? Can you do this film? Can you do that one? I'm like, guys, we've only got 8 films that we can cover. So I genuinely really feel like we should redo this particular theme at some point again in the future, because I know that we will have so many requests from our listeners that they want us to cover. So we should definitely redo this theme. With that being said, do you guys have any regrets about the films that you picked?
I don't think they're regrets. I just think one film that I would love to cover, and obviously last week we mentioned James Cameron, I would love to cover Avatar because it's one of my fave films, and I feel like a regret is that I didn't pick Avatar.
Yeah, you should have. I don't have a regret on mine because I think mine were fairly based in on real science. Do you know what I mean?
Yours were.
The Last of Us was had a lot of scientific backing because it was literally based on a real thing, just in humans instead. And then Jurassic Park, which people were trying to bring extinct species back to life in real life. And then next week's episode, which is probably the most science-backed episode that I'm going to be covering. So, yeah, I have no regrets.
I'm with you, Taz. I have no regrets about my films. My film choices came like that to my head. They just came into my head so quick. The only one was Interstellar. Regret it slightly because quite difficult. But hopefully I'm going to break it all down for you today. But anyway, the reason I asked you guys about that is because I have been doing a lot of deep thinking about regret and personal growth. And it got me thinking about second chances in general. So my question of the week is, if you could go back in time and change any event in your life, literally anything, would you? And if so, what would it be?
Ooh,
deep questions for the penultimate episode.
Deep questions. Taz, you
I've
can
got
start.
an answer. My straight away answer in my head was no, absolutely not. Wouldn't change a thing. Because you can't have regrets about these things, and generally I do stand by that. But then I thought I could have done with maybe 1 or 2 less exes than I have. So let's just call those a regret, and I could have done without them in my life, honestly.
Yeah, but they're a lesson. You've learned stuff and grown.
No,
as a
I'd rather
person
just
from
not have that as a lesson, just that's fine. I didn't need to deal with that trauma.
Yes. What about you? What's your answer?
Regrets. Do I regret anything? Doing a fucking PhD. No, joking. I'm proud that I did it. But no. We can bleep all these swear words up, but that's how I'm feeling, guys. I think science in general is hit and miss. You like it one day, you don't like it the next day.
Yeah.
It's probably like any career you choose. Some days I'm like, I wish I didn't go into it. I wish I did. I think in terms of regrets, I feel like because my research is very much what we call blue skies, it's like researching for research's sake, which can be beneficial in the future. I find that that's hard when there's no application. Obviously, I like researching for curiosity's sake, but I do think it's hard when you've not got like I don't research for drug discovery or to like cure cancer. It's like I'm researching to understand the ocean systems, but it's not directly impacting climate change. So for me, it's kind of like maybe a regret is not having done my PhD on something that's like more applied to kind of help the world that we're in right now.
I don't
It's
think that
quite
has to
deep.
be a regret though, because it's not like you're at the end of your career. Like you've still got so much time to do that. So
Exactly.
I
And
don't
that's
think
why
that should be a regret.
I'm moving to more applied. Like you learn, you live and you learn, and that's why I'm kind of moving or jumping ship to more applied research. What about you, Liv?
Do you know what? Like literally nothing comes to mind of significance. Like, sure, there's certain things that I feel like I could have dealt with differently, but like, yeah, nothing really comes to mind, to be honest. So yeah, I definitely would not travel back in time and change anything that I've ever done. And speaking of going back in time and traveling, the reason I brought this up is because that is actually one very misunderstood aspect of Interstellar. So today I'm going to get into the science of Interstellar. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Interstellar, directed by Christopher Nolan, is an epic sci-fi film that blends compelling storytelling with cutting-edge, some of it, scientific concepts. It captivated audiences in 2014 when it was released, with its depiction of space exploration, black holes, and the survival of humanity. So the film follows Cooper, a former NASA pilot who embarks on a mission to find a new habitable planet for humans as Earth faces ecological collapse. An interesting fact about Interstellar, which I did not know, is that no one really knows the exact date or year when the film is supposed to actually take place.
I can't lie, I don't feel like I really remember the film that well. I know it's like up there with one of my fave films. I don't even think I understood it. And so can you also remind us what the hell it's all about?
Yeah. So yes, the film is set in the future. So it's all about where Earth is basically plagued by climate change and loads of dust storms, which essentially leads to a global agricultural crisis. And as a result, funding for NASA has been drastically cut, which renders the agency inactive in its former capacity. So, because of these challenges, like I said, only a few crops like corn can still survive, and they basically become crucial for humanity's survival. Now, the main character, Cooper, is portrayed by Matthew McConaughey. And as I told you, he was a former NASA pilot, but now he is a farmer who has a little corn farm and he lives with his two children, Murphy and Tom, and also his father in law, Donald. So, as I said, in this chaotic world, society has moved to an agrarian existence, which basically just means that, like, everyone is a farmer. So the crops are failing due to blight, which is basically a plant disease caused by pathogens. And blight will also reduce oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. So, in other words, basically, there's no food, and eventually there's going to be no oxygen on Earth because of this disease. So, because of this, Earth is no longer a suitable home, and humanity is facing extinction.
Yeah, I remember this film. Like, I think I've watched it a few times now.
Have
Because it's
you?
just one of those ones where, like, it's so long, but you need to watch it a few times to try and grasp absolutely everything. But yeah, I
Exactly.
remember the beginning part of the film
Yeah.
where they were like, we can, like, imagine only eating corn though. So sad.
Well, they were also drinking corn beer. So they managed to make beer.
Priorities.
Priorities. Okay, so we've got Cooper. He used to be an NASA pilot. Now he's a farmer. And he obviously has this like working farm where he lives with his children. Now, this is where things take a strange turn in the film when Cooper's daughter, Murphy, begins to complain about a ghost in her room. That is basically, she's got like this huge bookshelf in her bedroom, and books basically just seem to be like being tossed around, and they basically just like think it's a ghost, right? And it also seems to leave messages potentially through dust patterns, which we'll touch more in just a second. But Cooper realizes that this phenomenon is not caused by a ghost, but rather by a gravitational anomaly.
Wait, because I actually feel like the film's coming back to me now, so I kind of feel like I get it. But a gravitational anomaly, what is that? Like, I feel like this film, I don't actually think this film made any sense. Like, I've seen it, like Taz says, I've seen it a few times. But like, actually, I don't have a clue what went on, so please enlighten us.
I'm making it my life mission. By the end of this episode, you're going to understand the film. Basically, a gravitational anomaly just refers to a disturbance or irregularity in the gravitational field. This information is going to come in useful in just a second, but just remember that. Now, in the film, these anomalies are depicted as unexplained gravitational forces that affect objects and environments. So, for example, Cooper's daughter Murphy experiences books being thrown around her room, seemingly on their own, which initially, like I said, they think it's a ghost, but it's later understood to be caused by these gravitational anomalies. Now, these anomalies play a crucial role in the storyline, as they are basically what leads Cooper to discover a hidden NASA facility and propel humanity's mission to find a new habitable planet through a wormhole near Saturn.
Okay, so we've gone from a ghost in her bedroom literally to like flying through a wormhole near Saturn or something.
Yeah, sorry. So that was probably a bit confusing. So let's rewind it back. So early on in the film, you guys might remember that Cooper notices that dust is settling on Murph's bookshelf in peculiar and repetitive patterns. So basically, Cooper and Murph begin to document and analyze these patterns. And I don't even know how you would think to do this. Like, if I just saw dust like falling, I'd just be like, okay, like,
yeah,
I'm not
same.
gonna. Anyway, he was a NASA pilot, and one of the really big things in the film is about how she is like super clever. So I guess they were just like so clever that they just like figured out that it must mean something. So that's why they were like, right, let's start like analyzing this. So they observed that the dust appeared to settle in dots and dashes reminiscent of Morse code, which we spoke about in the Martian episode. Morse code is basically a method of encoding text characters as sequences of dots and dashes, which can be translated into letters and numbers. So, as we know, Cooper has a background as a NASA pilot and an engineer, and he recognizes the potential significance of these patterns. And together, they discover the ghost is an unknown intelligence sending them coded messages using gravitational waves. And the message is actually some binary coordinates. So the dust settles, they basically like convert the Morse code, and they have a set of coordinates. The coordinates lead them to a hidden location where they discover a secret NASA facility led by Professor Brand. He's a very important character in this plot. And Dr. Brand tells Cooper that a wormhole, apparently created by aliens, and it was first discovered 48 years ago, by the way, leads to new planets that may offer hope for survival of humanity.
You've just spoken about a wormhole. Is that realistic? Is that an actual thing? Are they real? Like, we're all about exposing Interstellar here. So, and I know it's pretty good at being like scientifically backed. So I would be curious to know if wormholes are actually real.
Yeah, really good question. Okay, so first of all, let's break down what a wormhole is. So a wormhole is essentially a cosmic shortcut. So you can think of it like a tunnel connecting two distant places in space. So imagine space-time as the combined frameworks of the 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimensions of time, forming the fabric of the universe where everything exists and moves. For example, when a very massive object like a star warps this fabric of space-time around it, it creates kind of a curvature, similar to how, for example, like a heavy ball would create a dip in stretchy fabric. If
Yeah.
this mass becomes extremely dense, it can collapse into what we know as a black hole.
Wait, can you explain how a black hole works again? Because I need reminding. But that was a really good analogy of like the ball and like stretching fabric. That was really good.
Okay, so let's cover what a black hole is. So, when a massive object, like a star, exhausts its nuclear fuel and it can no longer support itself against its own gravity, it undergoes a collapse. And this collapse can occur if the mass of the star is sufficiently large and dense. So, as the star collapses, it concentrates its mass into a smaller and smaller volume. And if this mass becomes extremely dense, the gravitational pull becomes basically just like incredibly intense. The concentration of mass and gravity creates what we call a black hole. In a black hole, the gravitational field is so strong that within a certain region around it, known as the event horizon, which we definitely did speak about in season 1,
Yeah.
nothing, not even light, can escape its gravitational grasp. So that's what a black hole is. Now, the idea behind a wormhole is different. It suggests that this extreme curvature of space time might actually create a bridge or tunnel between two separate points in space time, potentially very far away from each other. So it's like imagining a hole through a piece of paper that could connect two distant points on opposite sides. So, this theoretical concept suggests a way to travel between distant locations in the universe or even between different universes without having to basically travel the long way around. So, it basically just gives you like a shortcut from one universe to another. So, while scientists theorize about wormholes based on Einstein's theory of relativity, we actually have not found any direct evidence of their existence yet. So, currently, they remain a fascinating idea in our exploration of how space time works and the potential for exploring like different, like distant regions of the cosmos. So that means that while wormholes in Interstellar are not factual in the sense of like them actually being confirmed things, they are also actually not impossible according to our current understanding of physics.
How would one even come up with this idea if there's no evidence for it? Do you know what I mean? To be like, oh, we can just like,
Maths equations.
I
but like,
suppose isn't it the whole point that like if like the gravitational pull of something can bend like space and time, maybe it could bend it so much that like it pulls 2 points together,
Mm-hmm.
and then like if you imagine like going back to Liv's analogy of like a really heavy ball in fabric, if you get pulling that ball down, like two sides of the fabric
Mm-hmm.
from either side would like eventually
Yeah.
come together. So maybe that's where like the
Yeah.
theory sort of comes from.
Yeah.
But that would be cool though.
okay, so that makes sense. And so you mentioned there's this Professor Brands. Was it that his plan or NASA's plan was to somehow use these wormholes to get through to a new galaxy to find planets like Earth, or like what is the scope for that? And even if they did, how the hell are they going to get Earth there? Or do they just want to send people there using rockets? Like, how
Mm-hmm.
does it work?
So, Professor Brand and NASA have two distinct plans to save humanity in the film, known as Plan A and Plan B. Firstly, before we get into them, just so you know, they've already ran some missions to look for habitable planets. So, they've already sent out 12 astronauts to 12 different planets to collect data to send back to Earth. And the idea is that basically, while they were on the planet collecting the data, they would basically like hibernate and wait to be rescued. Now, through this mission, they found three potential options, so three potential planets that like could be livable for humans, and they are all orbiting this huge black hole called the Gargantua. The planets are called Miller, Edmonds, and Man, which are all named after the astronauts who were sent there and who were there collecting the data.
Okay, so firstly, is Gargantua actually real or have they made it up? Also, they've discovered these planets, so now what do they do?
So I also could have sworn that I had heard about Gargantua and it was like a real thing, but it's not.
Yeah.
Gargantua is made up. But something really
Oh.
interesting about Gargantua in the film is the visualization of it in the film. So everyone basically said that it was so scientifically accurate and like very, very close and real to what a black hole actually looks like. So in 2019, NASA actually got the first picture of a black hole. This film was released in 2014, and actually their like depiction of a black hole was like very accurate. So the team behind the visual effects collaborated closely with a theoretical physicist named Kip Thorne, who is
Cool.
known for his work on gravitational physics and astrophysics, obviously particularly in the study of black holes and wormholes. So I just thought that was a really cool point to mention. So Gargantua is not real, but they did a very good job of making it look exactly how it should have looked. In answer to the second part of your question, they've discovered these planets that could be potentials. So they actually get Cooper. Remember, he used to be a former NASA pilot. So they get him to agree to actually pilot Endurance, which is the spacecraft that's going to be sent to go to these planets and collect the data, and also to rescue the astronauts who are on those planets. So if one of the planet's data looks good, then basically humanity will actually follow on space stations to go and start living on this new planet. But NASA have still not solved the problem of lifting enough of humanity into space and to the planet. So their plan B is to basically like population bomb the identified planet with human embryos. So they're just like going to shove a load of embryos on a spaceship, send it through a wormhole, and then put it on another planet. That's the plan. Plan B.
I don't even know what to say. Like, imagine you grow up and that's how
Yeah.
you were like born into this world. Like, what is going on? Can you even transport embryos like that? What's the process? Are they like frozen? Because you can freeze embryos. I know like freezing eggs as a woman like is good, but well, it might be good, might not. But the survival rate, like I think you can freeze embryos and that's better.
Literally, because I thought this, because you know what I thought of straight away is, have you seen like the videos of astronaut training? When they're
Yeah.
like being whipped around on that. And like all of their skin is like going back. Like that's
Those
literally
poor little embryos.
this basically the idea of transporting embryos through space, especially through a wormhole, is actually considered highly unlikely with our current technology because embryos, even when frozen, require a stable and controlled environment to develop properly, including like specific temperatures, pressures, and nutrient conditions. So even if they were frozen, they basically say that the extreme acceleration, vibrations, and also radiation exposure during rocket launch could potentially damage or destroy the embryos. So basically, this part of the film is very unlikely to happen as of yet. And if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure that at the end of the film, like they do show that they managed to like successfully transfer these embryos. So I guess we can say that that is like the first solid like scientific inaccuracy that we see in the film, is that even when frozen, it is still quite unlikely that they would have like survived space travel, basically.
Yeah, that's so true. I didn't really
Mhm.
consider that aspect because there's so many other like scientific aspects you don't really then think, or I didn't really consider that point. And I also think like at that point, if you're just depositing human embryos on a planet, like is it even worth like saving the human race? Like, I don't know. What's the point?
Yeah,
But anyway, I
agreed.
kind of remember that part. And then Cooper goes on the spaceship and he leaves his family behind. And one of the astronauts flying with him, wasn't she actually Professor Brand's daughter as well?
Yeah, exactly. So there's 4 of them in total, and then also like 2 AI robots. And yeah, one of the what was her name? Amelia. Amelia was Professor Brand's daughter. It's all just very like coincidental, like exactly how films are. Like, oh, he just happens to be your daughter. But anyway, so they will go on Endurance, the spaceship. They go through the wormhole and they head to the first ocean planet called Miller. It's orbiting Gargantua, that massive black hole. And when they get there, they discover that due to Gargantua's massive gravitational pull, Every hour on that planet is 7 years on Earth.
Wait, so how is that even possible? Like, can that happen?
Yeah, so I thought this part of the film was like not rooted in like real science, but it actually is. And this idea is known as time dilation. So imagine
Mm.
time as something that flows differently depending on how much gravity there is around you. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, gravity isn't just a force that pulls things down, it also bends and warps time itself. So, near a massive object like a black hole, where gravity is incredibly strong, time actually slows down compared to places where gravity is weaker, like on Earth. So, if you imagine, like, when you were a kid and you were on a playground slide, if you think about it, when you used to sit at like the top of the slide, you'll slide down slower because it's steep and it pulls you more strongly. Which the first time I heard this analogy, I was like, I don't think that's true. But actually, yeah, if you think about it, if you sit at the top of the slide and then you try and go down, like, you know, that feeling of like getting stuck on the slide, that's kind of what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're near the bottom where it's less steep, you slide down faster. So, in the same way, near a black hole where gravity is intense, time moves slower, and this effect is called time dilation. So, because the planet Miller orbits very close to Gargantua, which has an immense gravitational pull, every hour on Miller is equivalent to 7 years passing on Earth. So, after a massive tidal wave hits the spacecraft, I don't know if you guys remember that part of the movie, they get to the
Mm-mm.
ocean planet. And when they get there, not only did they figure out that time dilation is a thing, but they also get to the planet and it just basically has like huge waves. Like every 5 minutes, they just kill you because they're just like so big. So they were like, right, this planet is obviously not ideal. So we're going to have to leave this one pretty quickly. Um, Huge tidal wave hits their spaceship, kills one of the crew members, delays their exit. But anyway, eventually they actually get out. And once they get out of that planet, they find that 23 years have passed on Earth.
So technically, they only spent like 3 hours there, but 23 years is wild. When they get back, don't they discover that Murphy is obviously now 23 years older and that she actually works with Dr. Brand?
Yeah, again, this is just like one of those like Hollywood coincidences. Like, oh yeah, all of a sudden his daughter's now also working for the professor. She's trying to help with the gravity equation. But anyway, we roll with it. So Professor Brand is basically dying at this point because obviously he's got older as well. And on his
Yeah.
deathbed, he admits that he already solved the gravity problem and determined that plan A is basically impossible, even if he gets more data from a black hole singularity, which is what he thinks he needs to actually like, or what everyone thinks he needs to solve the equation. But he's basically saying, even if I get that data, I still can't solve the gravity equation. It's just lost hope. Let's go with plan B and send all the embryos, right? But Murphy reckons that Brand's equation will work if they can get the additional data from the black hole's singularity.
Okay, so what is a black hole singularity?
So, a black hole singularity is essentially just the very center of a black hole where the gravitational pull is so intense that space time curves infinitely and the laws of physics basically break down. So, the gravitational equation in the film is likely a framework. They didn't actually say this in the film, but this is what physicists think, is that it's likely a framework that attempts to unify Einstein's theory of general relativity, which essentially just describes gravity as the curvature of space-time, with quantum mechanics, which deals with particles and forces at the smallest scales. So, to solve this equation and harness gravity for the benefit of humanity, the scientists in the film would need precise data from Gargantua's singularity. And this data would potentially unlock the ability to manipulate gravity, which is crucial for achieving Plan A, which is transporting Earth's population through the wormhole, but also Plan B, because it helps them figure out how to get through the wormhole like safely and get like these huge space stations through the wormhole or whatever. Anyway, they visit another one of the potential planets and it all goes wrong there too. But I'm going to skip over that because there's not really like any fun science in that part of the film. But just so you know, they did go to another one and it all just went
Mhm.
wrong. Another person died. But after this, they find out that they're low on fuel and they've got one more planet to get to.
So, did they not think of that? Like, how can you be low on fuel when you're in space? Like, what do you do at that point? Because what happens?
Literally.
Like, where do you go from there? Like, I haven't got a petrol station, so what am I doing?
Isn't that like also because the guy on the spacecraft was outside the, I guess, the orbit of the planet that they were visiting, where like 23 years passed, and when they got back to him, he was like loads older, no? So maybe that's why they ran out of fuel, because for him, like, I don't know, like 15 years passed or something.
Yeah, something went wrong that, or it was something to do with that. That's why they had low fuel. So yeah, I can't remember exactly why. I just know that they were low on fuel. But I think it's not like they went out there with not enough fuel. There was a reason that it was either the time dilation thing, or I think something might have happened when they went to the other planet, because there was like, it all just went tits up on that planet. But Cooper and Amelia, they're left on Endurance, and they have a plan to slingshot the spacecraft around the black hole so that they can get to the last planet without running out of fuel.
I see that all the time in movies, but the slingshot, what actually is it?
Okay, yeah, so Yaz did actually cover in the Martian episode of this series what a slingshot maneuver is. However, in case you haven't listened to that episode, I'm just going to quickly cover what a slingshot maneuver is. So, it is used by spacecraft to increase speed or change trajectory. So, imagine you're on a moving walkway at the airport. So, if you walk forward on the walkway that's already moving in the same direction, you're obviously going to move faster than if you were just walking on a normal or like stationary floor. Similarly, in space, a spacecraft can use a slingshot maneuver around a massive celestial body, like a planet or a black hole, like Gargantua, to gain extra speed and momentum. So, in this case, they gain enough velocity to reach their target destination, the third potential planet, Edmonds. Due to being directly in the heavy gravity of Gargantua, several more decades actually pass back on Earth when Cooper actually decides to detach himself into the black hole. He does this for two reasons. Number one, to sacrifice himself to collect the data on the singularity to send back to Murphy so that she can finish the equation. And also to drop some extra mass so that Amelia can actually make it to the third planet.
What do you mean he detaches himself into a black hole? Like, is that possible? I thought if you go in a black hole, like, I would assume it like almost eats you up. You just disappear into this ether of like non-existence.
So yeah, I don't know if you guys have like heard the term when people say like, if you were to go into a black hole, you'd get spaghettified. Have you heard of that?
No.
No.
So the intense gravity near a black hole, people say that it can actually stretch you out, like, so you'd literally be spaghettified. Or it can
What?
even tear you into, like, basically like split you up into like different sections. You just be like split up into different sections.
Oh.
Pretty savage. However, it might be possible to actually, like in real life, to survive falling into a black hole if the black hole is rotating and you enter it at the right speed and direction. So in Interstellar, Cooper falls into a rotating black hole and ends up in what's called a gentle singularity, which is essentially a less extreme area where technically survival is theoretically possible. So that part of the movie, while maybe it's a stretch, it's not out of the realms of possibility that you could fall into a black hole and survive, which I wasn't expecting to read. I was expecting to like read about it and it was going to be impossible.
I remember that bit where then like, I don't want to give the spoiler, but yeah, I feel like it's coming to me now. Like I remember like that bit. I was so confused because there was like so many dimensions or something going on.
I literally remember watching this and my heart was like beating. Like genuinely, this is the first time I've watched a film. I'm like, my hands were actually sweaty. Like I was like, oh my god, he's in a black hole, because I really started thinking like, imagine you're just in a black hole, like, and you actually survive the black hole. Like, what would you do?
Yeah, I don't even know. This was like I don't know, like a fear of mine when I was a kid, like Earth was just going to fall into a black hole.
Oh
I
my
don't
God,
even know
Taz.
why.
Taz, you know I said, like, I have intrusive thoughts. I can't tell you how often I think, like, well, we could all just be sucked into a black hole, like, right now. And if I'm having a bad day, I'm just like, is it that deep? Because, like, we could all just be sucked into a black hole right now. So,
No,
But what I'm confused
literally.
about is like light doesn't travel or light gets absorbed into a black hole. So how would you see? Because in the film, doesn't he like see stuff? But like if there's no light, how are you seeing? Because it doesn't make
I
sense.
think the point is that he's in this area called a gentle singularity, which, if I'm correct,
Right.
is basically a layer between two singularities. And that's why it's technically possible to survive in there.
Mm.
Obviously, like, the nitty-gritty physics is just like, I'm sorry, but way too complicated for like my brain. But all we need to know is that it is theoretically possible that you could survive in a black hole.
Hmm.
Because, yeah, I don't know, different, like, to do with the different singularities. But anyways, once Cooper is inside the black hole, he finds himself in a tesseract. But this tesseract that he finds himself in, he figures out was actually constructed by future humans purely so that Cooper would fall into it and then be able to collect the data on Gargantua's black hole singularity and send it back to Murphy. So because he's in this tesseract in Murphy's bedroom, this is basically what allows him to see different moments in Murphy's life all at once and communicate with her to save humanity. So you'll remember him like kind of floating around, and he's going from like seeing Murphy as a kid to then seeing
Yeah.
her as an adult.
I think that's at the point when in the film where I was like, oh, so like the bookcase thing with all the books coming out, that was like he was able to interact with her when she was younger.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess he can see Murphy as a kid and as an adult at one time. Like how what is that even? And then he communicated with her as a kid, and then he can just like go onto a different perspective and
Mm-hmm.
communicate with her
Mm-hmm.
as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Okay, so in terms of whether this is actually possible, I'm just going to say that, like, what physicists say about it is that nobody's ever been inside a black hole. So, like, obviously, no one actually knows what the fuck is in a black hole. So, also, like, is it out of the realms of possibility that there could be a tesseract in a black hole? No. I mean, obviously, the whole plot of like future humans being like putting it there, that's all very unlikely. But in theory, something like the tesseract that he found himself in could be inside a black hole. But anyway, let's just talk a little bit about the tesseract. So, in the tesseract, Cooper experiences Murphy's life at various stages, all at the exact same time, like we said, and that's what allows him to interact with her as both a child and also as an adult. So, using gravity, he manipulates the second hand of Murphy's watch to encode the data collected from the black hole singularity in Morse code. This quantum data, observable only within the black hole, is what holds the key to solving the gravity equation. If you remember, I told you that earlier. Years later, Murphy decodes this message and uses the information to potentially save humanity by harnessing gravity. And the closed time-like curve concept in the film, which is what I said about how like future humans have put it there, that suggests a loop where future actions influence past events, which is made possible through gravity's unique ability to traverse dimensions, including time. So while the Tesseract scene, like I said, it's speculative and it's not really like something that you can replicate in real life, it does actually draw inspiration from theories of relativity and quantum mechanics.
Okay, so just to overview for our listeners and for me as well, we had time dilation near a black hole, which is like a theory I found pretty interesting when I watched this because I didn't know that it happened before.
mhm.
Wormholes and the idea of a tesseract are like kind of grounded in the theories of relativity and quantum physics. However, surviving a black hole or like falling into a black hole, creating a tesseract, or even transporting embryos through space are probably like beyond our current understandings and technological capabilities.
Yeah, exactly. And that's pretty much Interstellar like summed up right there, to be honest. So Interstellar in general is, I would say, like we done the Meg last week. We said that Meg is probably like one of the least um infactual films that we've covered. Interstellar is probably one of the most factual films that we've covered, even though like a lot of its theories that it like relies on in the film are not proven. They are pretty much all backed by physics, maths. So yeah, I would say that it's a pretty factual film, and in my opinion, the coolest film that we have covered. Although I'm biased, but
No, that's so cool. I like that. Thanks, Liv. And actually, like, I feel like the film makes sense. Like, I want to watch it now and have all this in my mind to be like, okay, I kind of understand it.
yeah, because there's a lot of like Easter eggs in the film. So a lot of people say that once you understand the science, you should go back and watch the film, because you'll like there's a lot of things that you'll get. So when they are on the planet Miller, and they are like, there's like the massive tidal wave, they're like dealing with that whole scenario. There's actually like a ticking sound in the background, and the ticks occur like every 1.25 seconds, which represents like every like year on Earth or whatever it is, or like every day on Earth. I think
Oh
I can't
my
remember if it's day or year. It must be
gosh.
day. So there's quite a lot of Easter eggs in the film that, yeah, once you understand the
I
science, that you
like
would like
that.
pick up on. And there's a lot of YouTube videos, like if you type in something like, I don't know, I've hidden things in Interstellar, like there's so many cool things
Cool.
that like are all related to the science, which I think is really cool.
I like that.
Oh my God, thank you so much for that, Liv. I definitely understand the story more now, for sure. And if the listeners liked this particular episode and your breakdown of Interstellar, please let us know in the comments, or take part in our poll as well. Because we're actually getting to the end of this series, which I'm super sad about,
So sad.
because next week is our last episode of the season. And it will be my episode, and I will be covering the film Gattaca, which I didn't actually hear about before this series, but I'm so glad that I did, and I'm so glad that I watched it, because it's actually so good.
It was actually our listeners who recommended Gattaca to us. Like a lot of you guys said that Gattaca was a film that you were interested in and was like your favorite sci-fi film. So obviously we had to cover it.
Okay, so I've got some hot laboraTEA today, which involves our listeners and our fun polls that we've been doing. So let's get into it. But I'm worth it, 'cause I'll slip into your dreams tonight. Oh, so give me your heart. I'll take it tonight. I'll stick like glue inside your mind.
Okay, guys, we have a brand new email in our inbox this morning. It's a pretty short one, but I still think it could potentially be something that maybe some people relate to. I don't know. So I thought we could read it out anyways. So it says, I am an undergrad as a research assistant, and my supervisor admitted to taking a shot before her work related presentations. And I just thought this would be the funniest conversations, because I've heard people say this so many times, like, oh, just take a shot before your presentation, just take a shot before this, get drunk before your presentation, specifically at conferences. So I wanted to get your guys'
That
thoughts on
liquid
this.
courage.
Literally, like, have you ever witnessed someone doing this? Have you ever done it yourself? And what do you think of people doing it?
So basically, you're like, hold on, mate, I'm going to take a tequila shot and then start my presentation.
Yeah, literally. Shot of tequila, and then I'm going to tell you about like some really complicated science.
I don't know, but I feel like even when I'm writing, if I've had a glass of wine or something, it just like relaxes you because you're not thinking so like in your head.
Do you know
So
what? Like,
maybe
that's
it's the
true.
same.
Because I remember when I was writing my thesis, like, get me like, yeah, like a glass of wine or a nice gin and tonic, and all of a sudden the words are flowing, like they're actually
Yeah.
flowing. I'm like typing away, like I don't know
Yeah.
what it is, but it just gets me going.
Okay, so would you guys take a shot before your presentation? Like, if
Okay,
it's a
but first
really
of
important
all, let's do like have you and then would you. So like, has anyone here
Okay.
actually done it?
Not like
Yaz is
not like meaning to like take a shot. Do you know what I mean? I think if it's been a conference and there's been like wine. No, actually, I don't think so. All my conferences, I talk in the day. I wouldn't just like back a drink in the middle of the day.
9 a.m. slot.
There's no way. Would you?
No, maybe no, because I've done the thing like, have you like you guys ever when you were in school like you'd get drunk before you went to class or like in college? So in college we used to have 2 o'clock Friday afternoons biology class, and it was like a 2-hour biology class. But right before it, we had like a free 4-hour slot that was free. And every single week we would, because obviously like college, you've just turned 18. So like going and buying a drink in a pub is like the funnest thing ever to you. So, and that's on British culture. But we used to, we used to go to the pub and yeah, we just used to get drunk before like our Friday biology class. So we used to do that. And I definitely also was like a little basically in school. And I definitely got drunk before like some lessons in school when I was like 14, 15,
Mate,
which is
I've never
actually
done that.
horrific.
I cannot
So,
imagine you doing that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
me
was
neither.
really, I was a bit naughty in school. I don't really know how, like, I feel like if my teachers saw me now, they would be like, what actually happened? Like, how did this happen? But basically what I'm saying is like, I have got drunk in professional settings, I guess, where I shouldn't. But would I do it now? No. But then I think maybe if I was really, really nervous for like a really big presentation, maybe.
Yeah.
But
But I
if you're a
haven't.
supervisor,
Oh, yeah,
like,
good point. Good point. I mean, I personally love
yeah.
giving presentations, and I don't really get nervous giving presentations. So, like,
same.
I wouldn't.
So I feel like because we're all like science communication and actually talking, we could probably just ramble on forever that like it's maybe not for us, but maybe if like any listeners who do get nervous, maybe that's like a tool that they use to like relax. Whereas I would literally be like, yep, what 300 people, I'll go and talk in front of them. Like, I don't care. Taz, I feel like you said when you were younger, you were a bit of a rebel or a bit of a nightmare. Did you ever do anything like that?
I never really did it in school time. It was more like I would go up to like the shops after school where all the schools used to meet, and it would be like after school that I would just stay out too late and things like that.
I
Mm.
feel
And
like
like,
Taz always gives JoJo Siwa energy.
what?
What?
Jojo Siwa? I'm actually offended. What the hell?
I actually don't know how I got through school because, to be fair, I used to go out a lot. I don't think I used to drink. I think we used to just buy them like 30p energy drinks and like sit in the park and just be those like annoying kids that would just like hang around the park. And anyone that had actual kids taking their kids to the park probably didn't want to go to the
Yeah.
park because we were hanging around there.
I would do that, but with alcohol though.
Yeah.
Like in a plastic bottle, so it was like disguised.
Like pure
Yeah.
vodka or something, like
Yeah,
Glen's
pure
vodka.
vodka in yeah.
We were reckless. So I feel like maybe we've escaped
Reckless.
this. We've done this back in the day. Like we wouldn't be reckless now. We're professionals, you know. Sorry, but
I don't know, sometimes that side comes out on me. But I would say for me it's more after the like when the conference is wrapping up, you know, like you get those free drinks and stuff, and then you
yeah.
like go out afterwards. Like I would say those times are the messiest times. I think anyone
Oh,
who's been to a
100%.
science conference. What?
No.
Yeah,
No.
I've been wrecked. Literally the next day I can't even like open my eyes.
Yeah, literally same.
This has just never happened at any conferences I've been to.
Well, you have to come to one with us then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're gonna have to
maybe.
find one that's so interdisciplinary that we can all
Yeah.
attend.
I remember being at a bar and with like my mate, and this is when like vapes were like going around, like literally everyone had a vape, so we had a vape, and my supervisor found us in this bar, and he was so smashed that by the end of the night he was chuffing on that vape.
Oh my god.
Me and my supervisor were passing it back.
That's wild.
No way.
Like
Marking
sharing a
prices
vape
with your PI, like that's mad.
crosses a boundary, no?
Yeah, I know.
But let me say this actually, on the topic of alcohol, I was at this like summer party and they had a cocktail, like a mixologist, and she was making loads of cocktails, and I was like, yeah, backing all these cocktails. And then it was either me, probably me, or a friend that was like, tequila. And then I literally did some shots of these people I'd never met before, but they were the co-founders of a startup. This is like 100% true story. And we took a tequila shot, and then after it, he was like, "Oh, when do you finish your PhD? What's your topic about?" And then
Oh my
he offered me a
God.
job
No
after we
way.
just backed tequila shots. And I was like, "See." I was like, "I'll bring the fun and the good community vibes to the job." And I literally got offered a job after doing a tequila shot. So like maybe it
Oh my
doesn't
God.
matter about being professional. You know, it's all about how you work it.
Well, I guess
So
these people are real. They're real people as well. Like no matter how professional you are, they are real people. They love drinking, they love partying, they like people who have a good time. So maybe doing the tequila shots can pay off, you know? But let's go
yeah.
back to like taking a shot at a conference.
But
Are
I
we
don't think
like
it said conference. It just said before presentation. So is it like her Tuesday morning lecture and she's just
it says work related presentations. So I would assume that it's like conferences and things like that.
But then work-related presentations could be like, say you have like a load of external collaborators and you have to present your data that you've done. Like I had to do a lot of those in my previous job. So, and they were like quite nerve-wracking because you're kind of like talking to other experts in the field basically, and they're there to like scrutinize your data. So I can kind of get why that would maybe be more nerve-wracking than like a lecture. You know.
Okay. What would you do if you were one of those people in the meeting and someone was giving a presentation but you smell alcohol on their breath, like when they're talking to you?
Oh God.
What would you call
Well,
it out and be like,
No,
now,
I
Matt,
wouldn't
depends
call
how
it
they were
out.
acting. Like, if they were like slurring their words or like they're just being like stupid in some capacity, then depends. Like, would I call it out? I don't know. But if they're just like chilling and they're like getting through their presentation and they seem okay and I smell alcohol, that ain't my business. I'm just gonna no.
Yeah, I agree. Because you don't know if there's like an underlying problem there. So,
So I ain't gonna get involved in that.
but like if they're like slurring their speech and they're visibly not okay, I'd probably be like, "Are you okay?"
I have heard a few academics have said problems. They have like alcohol in their drawers, and sometimes like after a long day, they just like, or I don't even know if it's after a long day, like it could be throughout the day.
During the long
But
day.
because during the long day, they just like open their drawer and pour a stiff one. Is it called a stiff one?
During the incubation
Sounds-
periods. Quick shot.
A hot.
No, do you know what? Like, I'm gonna just say it. Like, if you're at a work conference, it's late in the day, you're about to do a presentation. If you're like super, super nervous, I'm not against you taking a shot. What I am against is you continuously taking shots throughout the day and like, you know, it becoming a thing. But like once every 3 months before a presentation, you're really nervous. If you feel like it's gonna help you, then I'm not against it.
I've been drunk in the audience because it was like we had a poster session at a conference and they're like, you have free wine. And then there was a keynote speaker. Why is the keynote speaker at like 7:30 p.m.?
Yeah.
Nobody needs that. And then I had to pee because I broke the seal. So I had to dip in like halfway through it. And you know, that's so embarrassing when you're like, you always having to get up to go. So I just stood at the back like for the rest of the talk because I was like, I just keep needing to go
And it's
toilet.
always like an hour long as well. Like, is keynote
why
at
is it
half
so
7 always an
long?
hour long after everyone's had wine? Like, what are you doing this for, please?
Yeah. Everyone just
Yeah.
wants to go drink at that point.
Yeah, I do love a conference.
But like, let me just say this last thing. I can totally understand how, as an undergrad / research assistant, that would be like totally shocking. Because I think
True.
until you get to master's PhD level, you really still have this idea that like lecturers are very professional people and like everyone is very like, you know, very anti-alcohol,
So
anti-party.
valid.
But like once you're in it, then you realize that like everyone is just normal people, and actually scientists are crazy. Like they're actually crazy.
Wild,
Yeah.
actually wild.
Ducking back shots. Like it's not like, so us three probably didn't give the shocked reaction that actually you expected, and that's only
Yeah.
just clicked in my head because we were all just like,
oh my
yeah,
god,
that's
that
fine.
is so true. Because even like when I was like, I want to do science, everyone was like, that's going to be so boring. Like everyone you're going to work with is so boring. You literally are just going to like stand there on your own doing your own thing. Like while you do stand on your own sometimes in the lab, like doing your own thing, the collaborative nature of it and at conferences is wild. Like it is so
Yeah,
lit. Every
it
conference
is.
I've been to has been so much fun, and I'm
I feel
literally
like
just
they
there.
only like our long time listeners like should actually be aware, because we've spoke about some crazy like conference stories. We've spoke about just like crazy stories in general, and actually that's like the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
idea of our laboraTEA section, is because wild shit happens in science and tech, and like we literally are like, why does nobody talk about this? So
Yeah.
maybe you're a new listener, but like you should go and catch up on all of the laboraTEA that we've done so far, and you'll hear that like some crazy stuff happens.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for writing in your gossip today. We really appreciate it. And I hope that this encourages some other listeners to write in. Like we always say, you don't have to write in some huge story that's really detailed. It's got side characters, main characters. Like we don't need that. We can just get like your little one-liners, and that's absolutely fine. So if you do want to write any gossip in, then you can head down to the episode description and click the anonymous link, and you can fill it out there. Remember that we don't get any of your details, we don't get your emails, so we have no idea who's wrote it in. So as we always say, go crazy, and we will see you guys in next
See
week's
you
episode.
soon.
Bye everyone.
Bye. You've been listening to the So Cultured podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Make sure you listen in next week for more science and tech updates and the hottest laboraTEA.
You can stay up to date with us in between episodes by following us on Instagram and X at soculturedpodcast.
See you back here, same time next week.